welcome to Triple T Thursday, except it's on a Friday this week because life. So welcome. I'm so excited that you're here today. This is going to be a special Friday episode of Triple T Thursday. All right. And I'm your host, Shelly Saves the Day. And today we're going to be talking about an introvert's guide to YouTube as well as events, live events, all that kind of stuff, right? And I figured this would be a very good video and topic to chat about because of the fact that as of today, I don't know, 4 hours ago, I came back to Seattle from New Orleans. How do you say it? I would love to know. And I am all discombobulated. I didn't even bring my soda over here or my tea. I will still ask you though, what is in your cup today, people? Pixelpia, happy Friday to you. I'm assuming it's going to be cold brew coffee. If Adam's Exploits gets on, I'm sure it's Poland Springs water. Let's see though, right? What's in your cup today, people? So I was thinking about this because I just got back from New Orleans. Everyone, that's Cooper. And so it was 3 nights of being there with 37. Mommy's trying to live stream. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. With 37 other influencers. And we were there at the second annual trip called Creators and Friends. Last year it was in Charleston. If you guys remember, I was on that trip in Charleston. This year it was in New Orleans. So it was bigger and better and badder and all the things. And so, buddy. All right. Hello, James Pruitt. How are you? Nollins. Hey, Natalia. I'm going to trust you on that one too. How are you? It's great to see you. I will say today, I was talking to one of the girls and I was like, San Diego, man. San Diego. Gosh, how's the weather over there? I came back to Seattle and it's, 49 degrees. I didn't love that for myself. Okay. It wasn't my favorite. So, this trip, so I flew out on, on Tuesday. So I just got back today. So it's 3 nights down there and there were probably about 37 other, female influencers there. And it's kind of funny. It's the whole gamut from TikTokers, Instagram, predominantly, or, and then YouTube, and then a lot of the people that do like everything. We have some bloggers and we have, it's a fun mix of people. And it's also, hi, Susan. How are you? It's good to see you. If you're new here, we always ask the question at the top of the hour, which is going to be, what's in your cup? And usually I stream on Thursdays, and I usually don't do it on Instagram, but I figured I had an extra destination. So I figured, why not? How are you? Let's see. You haven't made any coffee yet this evening, and you're out of the hospital. Oh, all right. How's your daughter doing, James? Good to see you. So, I was thinking about this and I was like, ooh, introverts. And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of YouTubers happen to be introverts. And I know this not only from myself being one, which I know is a surprise to a lot of people because I can turn it on for a little bit, and then I'm exhausted. And then I'm also then drained and I really need to not be around people for a good amount of time because at the crux of a lot of what we do as YouTubers is sit into a room by ourselves, staring at an inanimate object, pretending that it's a human, and interacting with it as such, trying to be conversational in a way that we know that is one-sided. So we get to fill in the blanks, right? I'm not Diet Pepsi. I'm not judging. Diet Pepsi is delicious, okay? Coffee, all right. She's doing good. Out a week earlier than expected. We get a round of applause for that. Give it up for that. Love that. Glad to hear she's out of the hospital even earlier. That's even better. Okay. So, and I know this also for a fact, and this is not just like brand new information coming from, this particular event or even last year's event, being that I've gone to so many of these conferences for big YouTubers and around other YouTubers, I would say sometimes the overwhelming majority of creators happen to be introverts, and you just don't know it because what you get from them is a highly edited and polished type of video that is sussed out from, the best of all of the video that they want you to see, right? And so when you have to do an event there are a lot of people who just won't do events because all of a sudden it's just completely out of their realm of little sphere that is within their control. And so when it starts to then become throwing in all of these variables, it becomes a lot scarier because you're like, oh no, I have social interactions and fear of all of that, or fear of looking stupid, and people are going to come up and ask me questions, or gosh, what can I say and not say, and what can I keep personal and private and not, and what if they think I'm awkward, or what if I don't live up to their expectation, or what if it just isn't X, Y, and Z, right? And so it's hard for sometimes people to get out of the house, the room, and their shell to interact with others because you have a lot of expectation on what does the other person think that that interaction should look like as well. And it was interesting, even way back in the day, I once went to a taping of the James Corden show. If you know James Corden, he used to have a late night show, right? The late night show. And I remember when we went to the taping of that, like in between commercial breaks, earlier in that trip, we had seen Live with Kelly and Ryan Seacrest. That's the one from American Idol and whatnot. And in between the commercial breaks, Ryan Seacrest would just literally come up to someone, hand out, smiling, "Hi, my name's Ryan," as if we needed to be introduced to him at that point, but that was just him. That's how he did it. And, you know, Kelly's out there and cracking jokes and all of this stuff. And James Corden, even though he's as bubbly on the surface and all of that on when the camera is on, when it was off, he was heads down, writing on note cards, very quiet, you know, having the makeup people like touch up his face without him like conversing, unless he like really needed to. He wasn't like vamping and doing all of this audience work. He was really like very, and then all of a sudden it was like this countdown and it was like lights on, shows on, and it was completely different. And so he was expending a lot of that mental energy and physical energy to be when the cameras were on. So that in a way, in a sense, kind of reminds me of being a YouTuber, because all of a sudden we're like game face and we're going to go and start, you know, recording something or whatnot. And we always know like we're going to have to amp up the energy because the camera's going to suck some of it out. And so, you know, if you don't want to be here like dead inside, then you're going to have to try a little bit harder. But what do you do then if you are an introvert and these things happen? We got VidCon, we got VidSummit, we've got, you know, Social Media Southwest, NAB, all of these types of conferences, PodFest, and you can either not go, but so much of what is happening because of the networking. And if you don't show up, you don't get talked about. If you're not talked about, you're not like top of mind for a lot of people. If you're not top of mind, you're not sometimes being introduced to the person who can help you get your next brand deal or your next collaboration or just making friends in the industry. And so it can become almost detrimental to your career or have it be slower if you don't actually then leave your house and do things. So it's something that mental math you're going to sometimes have to do later on to determine if it's worth leaving your house or your pets or whatever else it is. So I'm here to help you mitigate some of the questions that you might do and some of the mechanisms that you might use to help you save your energy for this. All right. So one, let's talk about how do you even know if you're an introvert? One of the things that I mentioned earlier was that you may get energized around other people, like interactions really gas you up and you're so excited for it. That might be more of a sign that you are an extrovert, okay? If you are someone like myself who I can have a conversation with you, I can have a one-to-many, I can do a presentation, but when I'm done, I am like, I need a nap. I need a good amount of time to recharge my battery back up. And that is more of a thing where if being around other people takes your energy, that is usually more of an introverted sign. If being around a lot of other people like really jazzes you up and gives you energy, then you're probably more towards the extroverted side. There is a little something in the middle too. We're going to call an ambivert, which kind of is like fluid. You're fluid. But of course, what is it about introverts and extroverts, you know, the whole opposites? Because my husband is definitely an extrovert. So let's talk about this. So an ambivert, like I said, is someone who can kind of waffle in between the two worlds. And it just kind of, like my favorite saying is, it depends, right? It just depends. So, and it also can depend on a lot of things, like, you know, your mood, and it could be the time of the month, or like just the people, the group that you're in. It can be all of that, okay? Now, There are, let's talk about this a little bit. Extroverts tend to enjoy spending time with other people, but they can sometimes like to be alone. They're usually tending to be more outgoing and start conversations. They prefer to do a lot of work on teams. They love that group dynamic, and they like to talk things out loud sometimes. Sometimes they have processing that doesn't happen inside of their heads like an introvert does, because we tend to talk to ourselves and rationalize with ourselves everything and then be like, yes, I want to do this. No, I want to do, these are all the things that could go wrong. Sometimes, buddy, an extrovert needs another person to literally rubber duck that off of, because they can't mentally process it inside. They don't have that inside voice. So the ambivert is going to be more so like they enjoy other people, but they do need usually some recovery time. They can be outgoing in certain contexts. They can be on teams, or they can work individually, and they can also kind of flip both ways on how they like to process. It can be out loud, and so it can be really hard sometimes to pinpoint an ambivert in one direction or the other, because it can really depend on environment. So if you're someone who always brings out a certain tendency in them, you may only think of them in one way versus another. Okay. And then the introverts, and we're just laying down this groundwork as we go through so you understand what we're kind of saying. I say we because I am said introvert, so I'm saying anyone else who's in that same ballpark with me. We like being alone, tend to sometimes be a little bit more observational, maybe a little bit more reserved. We have lots of thoughts. We just don't always express them. We prefer to work by ourselves, not always in a team. And we like to process internally because, buddy. So one of my old top 5 traits was going to be like ideator, right? Is someone who could very much go through all of the different possibilities of things, and then you kind of create that contingency plan. That's usually more of a telltale sign. Buddy, you guys. We're having some issues over here with Coop, and he definitely wants to but Cooper? No. 1 second. Okay. 1 second. He's winning at life and in this argument because he's processing out loud. Okay. And I am not. Hold on 1 second. Buddy. Buddy. Okay. He's going to be so mad at me. I'm going to make him be up here for just a minute. He can usually handle me holding him for about 5 minutes before he lets me have it. All right. Don't worry. We'll cover all your man bits. All right. So another thing you might find about some of the introverts is that sometimes we tend to have resting bitch face. Now, whether that's intentional or unintentional, because we really don't want people to come and talk to us because we find it emotionally draining and exhausting to have to think about all the different things that we could say to them. Whereas extroverts are like really excited to see you and they really want to chat with you. And it's usually very apparent on their face, like right away. They're like, oh my God, yes, get over here, right? So if you're looking for a sign, sometimes it's not that we're angry. It's not that we're sad. It's just that we're introverted and we're a little scared. So that may come across in our face, okay? Now, hopefully, is this making sense so far? If it is, give me a little thumbs up on that. Yes? Yes? No? Now, here's the thing. Introverts do have some superpowers. And one of the reasons why a lot of the times introverts end up going into social service or politics or anything like that is because not only can they see different possibilities, they can talk to people and they can turn it on, especially in some sort of group setting or a speech dynamic type of thing, but they can also be very good on one-on-one conversations because that's where sometimes introverts shine, where they don't always appeal. I know I just said they can do like a big speech, but that's different because just like when you're at your wedding and you're just flitting about from table to table and it's very surface level conversation and you're not getting too into the weeds with anyone, because no one expects you to go a 30-minute conversation at your own wedding, right? They kind of expect you to keep moving along and keep it surface level. So that's what makes conversations like that super simple, because one of the things that you can do when you're an introvert is you have a specific list of questions that you go to in your head when you either meet new people or see people again that you have known already. You have a very set amount of brain power that you've allocated to these like resources, and you're like, oh, if I see blank, I know that. And we store things away for later. So some people will be like, wow, you're really observant, or I can't believe you remember that from a year ago when I told you that. And you're like, I will catalog it so that the next time I see you, I know that I have at least one thing to talk to you about. And that is exactly, well, that's how my brain works, right? So yes, hello. El Jefe Reviews is in the chat. So if I saw El Jefe, even though he is my friend, right, I'd be like, what's new with your headphones? Tell me about your blue Mustang. Tell me about, your job at blank. Tell me about these types of things. Tell me about your brother. How's the DJing going, right? Like I'm sorry, I'm using you as an example. I hope you don't mind. But he is my friend too. He is also my friend. But the thing is, I can still go to these points with him and be like, hey, tell me about blah, blah, blah. I can go through 5 or 6 points. And then in my head, I'm like, that means I've filled enough time to not be awkward, to have enough things to talk about. And if someone comes up and interrupts us, or he has to go off to another one, I can catalog this interaction as a success. That is how my brain works. Okay. He should not have anything that he should be upset or angry or awkward with me about. So he should continue to hold me in a good regard, hopefully. I am giving you all the insights into how my brain works. This is how it works. Okay. So, and that is going to be one of the mechanisms I give you, is like you can have a set of go-to questions, because unless El Jefe is walking around with me to each person, right? He's not going to know that I use sometimes the same questions, but I do have different catalog pinpoint items for each person. So there is that too, right? El Jefe's like, so are you saying that we're not friends? No, we're friends. We are friends. Okay. Huh. We're friends. Do you need to be higher? You need to show everybody your stuff? But we won't show them your man bits. We'll cover the man bits. Okay. All right. Ow. Anyways, one of the reasons why the introverts make good leaders then is they can turn it on for performance. They can public speak. They care about all the ins and outs. They care about all the possibilities, and they can see all the different iterations of what could be and how we would like mitigate all of those things if they happen to occur. They're also good, like I said, making conversation in small groups. They're also good at making other people feel like the conversation is usually about them and not about themselves, because a lot of the time they're not really trying to bring a whole bunch of extra attention to themselves, their hobbies, their whatever else is. Okay. So we're usually, and I say again, we, as the introvert, we're usually observational in nature. So I'm going to remember maybe what you were wearing, or maybe what you were eating, or the fact that you're allergic to chickpeas and chocolate, like my friend, right? So if we go to some restaurant, I'm going to be like, yes, we do have allergies here, and these are what they are, because I remember those things, right? And so sometimes you may hear a lot of things like, oh, I can't believe you remember that. That's going to be sometimes one of those telltale marks that you are dealing with an introvert, okay? So because you tend to speak less, and because you tend to bring up points that might be poignant or rememberable for some people, people may sometimes think that what you're going to say is important, because you don't tend to speak a lot. And when you do, it is very, like personal. It's very much like that, right? So there's also when people are quiet, and you hear this a lot with people who are doing public speaking, and that they try and use a lot of filler words, that they try and fill up the space with time. Whereas introverts tend to give you just the facts, ma'am, right? Like enough information for you to have your question satisfied, to feel like that you got a complete answer without extras. I know I tend to be like weird and rambly and stuff like that. So again, exception, not rule. But as a general guideline, we're going to try and get the information out as quickly as possible. We're not going to want to elaborate on any details. And we're going to hope and pray to goodness that you're not going to ask us clarifying questions, or maybe you will. And that will make us feel like authoritative in some way because we have a correct answer for you. But we don't tend to go on extra flowery and wax poetic about whatever, because we also know that we'll go way off script and we'll just be like, the last thing I want to do is go on for 20 minutes with a story that I feel like people never wanted to hear in the first place, right? So when we talk about this thing, one of the reasons that you have to understand all of these intricacies is you have to know what it's going to take for you to recharge your batteries. Okay. Is it that you have a code word when you hit a certain amount of time? You know, you give the look to someone in your, in your friend party, you're like, I have a go-to script piece that I almost always go to, which is, wow, I think we better go check on the dogs. They've been in puppy prison for a long time. And that just means they're kennel, you guys. They're not in linger. It's puppy prison to them, okay? Something like that, right? So it's going to be like, oh, yeah, we should probably check on that. That's just, I want to go home. Because about 5 minutes into the party, in fact, you know what? Let's be honest. I probably didn't want to go to the party. My husband wanted to go to the party. But if I do go to a party, best believe I'm looking for that dog. Because dogs are great for conversation at a party, and they'll get you out of way more conversations than you want to be in. You know what is also good? Eating. Eating is also good because people don't want to talk to you while you're eating because it's like, oh, it's rude because I don't want to talk to them while their mouth is full. That's just an extra reason you'll almost always find me by the food table. Also because I'm usually hungry. But that's just a little fun fact. If you're looking for Shelly at a party, she's probably near the kitchen eating. And I'll be like, I can't talk right now. My mouth's full, right? So here we go. One of the things that you can do, like I said, you can prep yourself for what you think might be coming. And people who tend to do this, you write out the possibilities because you don't want to have that deer in the headlights moment. And so I have found that it will calm me down more immensely if I can run through different scenarios in my head of what could happen, and then I have a possible solution for it. Those types of things make me feel more comfortable. And when I feel more comfortable, then I feel more amenable to going to a party or doing the thing, right? Because I've already laid out many, many different ways that it could go and possible solutions for it, okay? There's another thing where possibly, depending on the time of day, remember when we had that kind of conversation before, like, are you a bear? Are you a bird? Are you a dolphin? Whichever it is, that maybe that's when you tend to have those types of meetings when you need to interface with people. So maybe if you definitely don't like people, unless you're going to eat the frog, as they say, and that's when your energy is the highest, maybe you don't have a lot of those huge meetings where you have to be putting on a show at the very beginning of the day, right? Or if you have to be in that environment, you go to, bed earlier, you plan to not go out and be amongst a whole bunch of people that evening, so you have time to recharge and recoup, especially if it's a multi-day thing, right? Another thing that they can do is, and they did a really good job on this trip, is they really tried to group people, I think, by personality in ways that would mesh well together. So one of the things that happened, we call it our third floor crew, but we had people on our floor that were sometimes maybe just like a little more milder, quieter, went to bed a little earlier, maybe we're just a little, older, or just, we called it the wild till 9 p.m. crew, something like that. And we just knew it's totally fine. Whereas opposed to some of the other floors, maybe they were like up talking till 2 a.m. and other people were like, no, thank you. No, thank you. Don't want. So, there is that, right? So when you have to take care of yourself, then how do you pre-plan for that? Like, can you have quiet? Can you go someplace else? Can you take a coffee break? Can you take a walk? Can you get and extricate yourself from the situation that you may be in that is causing you to, just to give you a little bit, just like when you need a quick recharge and you do the ultra fast charger and like, give me 30 minutes, that's either your power nap or your walk or your go hang out with dogs. And then you come back and then you finish out the rest of it. Then you go home and recuperate. Those types of things. If puppies make you happy, make sure you have one. You know what I'm saying? Like, have the things around you that make you feel comfortable. Okay. So that means if I know that there's some big event like this, I don't plan to go to a party when I come home. I plan to, and this kind of counts, but it doesn't count. You know what I mean? After this, I will, get some tacos. Okay. Who am I kidding? I was looking on the food app. Okay, before this, just minor side incoming rant. I was looking on the food delivery apps like Uber Eats and Grubhub and stuff like that. And when did delivery fee? Fine, it went away. But the service fee, is like, it was $10 on one, and like the meal was $10. And I was like, I'm paying more. Like, and then I was like, I could just go to the taco place up the street instead of paying the extra $15 in fees. But am I going to do it? I don't know, because I just don't want to interact with another human. But I digress. The point is, when I know that I'm coming back from some big event where I've expended a lot of energy, I want to sit home in the dark and eat tacos and watch movies. Sometimes it's a feel-good movie. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people will end up watching an entire series of Friends, or they'll watch all of the Harry Potter movies or all of the Lord of the Rings movies, because it's a mindless thing that you already know what the background is. You already know that you don't need to pay attention to it because it's just a comfort thing, and you watch it and you feel better because there is routine in this, or it's just like, it's mindless to the fact that you don't need to be paying attention, right? You don't need to know what's happening in season 8, episode 15 of Friends. You just know that it's probably going to be funny at some point. And if you're like me, you probably have memorized it anyway, and then you can just kind of like start saying lines out loud. And that is comforting, because when you have something that is extremely that goes exactly the way that you know it's going to go, you know what I mean? And it's like routine in that way. There are no surprises. There's nothing that's going to take you for an emotional like loop. It's very comforting to a lot of people, right? So that's absolutely one of the things that you can do is like self-care when it comes to how to be prepared for something like that, or how to recover from an event where you know you've had to expend a lot of energy. Sometimes you may just want to curl up with a blanket and watch Friends, and and that's totally fine. So I think it's good to identify how you like to recharge. It could be, with one specific person, like if you have a person, if it's a significant other, or, your pets, or if it's just you taking a bath or whatever. I think it's really good to also be able to express. I know words, we don't love them, but if you need to say to someone like, hey, I need an hour, I'm just going to take a bath and I need to not interface with you. Most people are usually going to understand and respect that, especially if they know you super well, right? And maybe you shift your hours. Like I said, if you are someone who knows that certain times of the day are not great for you, maybe that's when you schedule some of those meetings where you have to interface with the most people. Sometimes it can be really difficult, especially when you're leading meetings, to start them at the beginning of the day, because kind of like with that same spoon theory, like you only have so much energy or, attention that you can expend. And so once you start giving away all of your spoons and you're just out completely, then it can be a real hard crash afterwards, okay? So one of the things too that can also help is a lot of the time a change in scenery. So whether that's getting away from your desk, a lot of people will just be like, head down, keep working. Like if I can just be more productive, they'll start eating lunch at their desk. They'll just like keep wanting to power through. And I actually really needs to sometimes have some brain rewiring time, and that's go for a walk. And sometimes I find that if I'm walking the dogs for a good 15-20 minutes, I'm out in the sunshine or even in the weather, just when I can look at other things and not feel like I'm trapped inside of this 8x8 room or whatnot, it really can do a lot of wonders. So even if you are still by yourself, sometimes just leaving the space that you were in will significantly help you with that. I swear, okay? Oh, I was about to say something about ideators. Oh, I was saying back in the day when I had my top 5 strengths finder test that I had taken. So strategic, maximizer, ideation, competition, and strategic, something like that, or my top 5. And so I knew very, very early on that was going to be a introverted type of list for myself, because I don't mind. In fact, I don't prefer to work in a team. Sometimes I would rather just do it myself, because I then feel this sense of pressure. I'm like, did they think I contributed enough? Did I do everything that I was supposed to do? And then also worrying, like, did everyone else do what they want to do? But if I'm not going to be the one to say something, but I'm going to be like, I'm be worried about it. So some of that extra brain energy is then like spent on that, versus just being like, I'll just do it myself, right? So very much a night owl, and make scheduling meetings rather than hard. When did Seattle get sunshine? I know, right? It's a hot, blistering 49 degrees. So when I came home, I was like, welcome back to Seattle. They really, yeah, I know. Aw, Karen Harris makeup. hello. I don't know if you're still out there because Instagram is really delayed on, no, it says 0 over here, but hi, it was good to see you when you were here. Okay. When you were here, and the chat is really delayed. So let's talk a little bit about, after 8 p.m. Thanks. That's funny. That's funny. All right. So as a creator, let's talk about this. Okay. It's okay to be an introvert on camera. Not everybody is, they yell at the camera and be completely over the top. And sometimes when you are seeing that, what you are seeing is a character. People are playing a character and they're acting like that. Just like kind of when I was referring to James Corden, he's not acting like that when the cameras are off, only when the cameras are on. And so you can, fake it. You can down the caffeine, or you can embrace the fact that you may be an introvert who may be a little soft-spoken, who may want to speak at a slower pace. And there are certainly videos and channels and creators that do it that way. And then there are some that just kind of put on that Sasha Fierce, right, as Beyonce does, character so that they can do it for a finite amount of time and then turn it off and then rest. So one of the things that you can do is if it does take a lot of energy, and it does, to do that filming, because sometimes when I'm not in the mood to film, and that can wreak havoc on how many videos I can create or put out or anything, because if I feel like I'm not very energetic, those videos come out very flat. I don't want to watch them. You don't want to watch them. Like no one wants to watch them. So that's why I always sometimes encourage people to also do the batch filming, because if you feel like you have enough energy to film, then get it out, because it's not always the case that you do. So maybe that's the time when you do 2 or 3 videos at a time so that you can get through it. Okay. So like I said, the amount of people that don't understand how many creators are introverts, and I've known this also like from my experiences at Vid Summit, I would talk to people, millions of subscribers, but they're quite shy. And so they're also ones who are like, can we ask the audience for questions? But I don't want to take any kind of questions about this, because here's the thing is they're in their head thinking about the answers that they'll have to give, how it could be perceived, what it could be written about in some way to twist it in some narrative. So they would rather control that environment more and be like, can we get people who ask questions like this? Right? And so that was one of my jobs, one of the times, to go out and find people who would ask questions, but not about X, Y, and Z type of categories. And that's fine, because that's how they protect their mental, clarity and peace. And I was happy and fine to do that. But what you see when they're out on stage and answering the questions is bright, bubbly, smart, and well-spoken. And it's probably because some of it is practiced, rehearsed, and talking pointed, bullet points, right? Because they want to stay on task. So number 2 is going to be, like I said, only shoot when you actually feel like you have the energy to do it. And when you do have the energy, capitalize on it and maybe try and find a couple different ways to film, right? So if you're going to put your makeup on, that's a get ready with me. If you're going to have the makeup on, then you do the regular sit down talking head video. And then if you're going to take it all off, skincare routine, whatever else it is, right? And then another thing is sometimes you're going to have to be like your own cheerleader, right? Because we spend a lot of time with ourselves, we tend to do a lot of negative self-talk about what we think people think of us, what the inner monologue of them, the other person, is. And so usually, I'm going to say this with a grain of salt because I have seen some people's YouTube comments and their filters, right? Usually we are harder on ourselves than most of the people are on us, right? And so we have to learn how to not only mitigate the trolls on the internet, but we have to figure out how to have filters for ourselves, because we are going to be way harsher on ourselves. I'm going to put you down now. Put you down. You're going to keep coughing, okay? So it may be up to you. When I was talking before about doing the ideation and if this goes wrong, then this happens. This is a possible solution. Sometimes, and we've talked about this before, you have to do that for yourself. So if it's, I don't want to start a YouTube channel, I don't want to take that job, I don't want to X, Y, or whatever. Sometimes because you ideate and you go through all of the possibilities and scenarios, you're like, okay, worst case scenario, what is going to happen in this instance? And if this happens, what would I do? And when you start to break it down, you start to realize maybe some of these things are not as scary. And it's a sneaky roundabout way to, one, exercise your inner monologue of all the worst things that could happen, because sometimes you really, when you read them back later, you could be really surprised on how creative you are, but also how resourceful you might be able to be if you had to come up with a solution. And most people find that, as I do as an introvert, that if you have a whole bunch of possible scenarios and then a possible roadmap to mitigate all of those types of things, to assuage your fears, all of a sudden it doesn't seem as scary and you have less reason not to do it. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if that makes sense. It can take you as your own worst enemy going through and listing all of the possibilities of what could go wrong, how you would fix it if it did go wrong, and then realizing what would be the next possible steps to achieve that thing for you to be like, you know what, I'm probably not going to die if I go outside this house, right? So a lot of the times you're going to have to talk yourself down by self-medicating, by going through all the possible worst things that could happen. I know it sounds weird, but it's a thing. Buddy, all right? So let me take a look over here. It says, none of my videos are very energetic, but neither am I. And that's fine. I think it's fine to embrace, because it would be better to, you know, be yourself than it is to put on the character that you completely then feel like you have to live up to all the time, right? Adam, welcome. Are you drinking Poland Springs water? He says, I joined David Foster's Creator Den. With my health, I'm making less content. I need a little motivation and accountability so I can make content. Yeah, and sometimes when you can't do it for yourself, other people can do it for you, right? So absolutely. Buddy, am I going to have to pick you up again? I'm so sorry, you guys. So, again, you don't need to be critical of yourself. You need to understand what are the things that do re-energize you, understand the things that take your energy, and then figure out where in your day you can spend that time. You can also stay tuned for bonus tip. Come here. He's just going to be a menace until just going to be a menace. He's just, if I hold you for just one more minute, can you stop coughing, okay? Okay. You can find certain topics that do energize you and make sure that you're around people who want to talk about those things. I know it sounds weird, right? But one of the things that really exhausts me is, you know that game when it's always like 2 truths and a lie? And I'm like, oh, damn it. Or like, what is something that no one knows about you? And I'm like, oh, the book is long. The list is very long. Because I don't know if I want to, like, it's a fine game, right? Like, I don't know how much I want to share. I don't know what I've shared. I don't know what they're going to think of it when I share. So, like, I don't want to play that game. So sometimes I want to be around the people that I already know, like, and trust, and then I can just pick up where I left off. Because one of the things people forget or have misconceptions about is they think that introverts don't, like, want to talk to you. And that's not true. Like, we want to talk to you. We want to be invited to the things, even if we can't come. In fact, our feelings get hurt when we hear you say something like, well, I would have invited you, but I knew you wouldn't have come. Like, give me the option to, like, have the choice first. Like, you're right. I would not come. But it hurts more to not be invited than to be invited and then say, I can't come. Right? But we can make a list of the topics that are safe. We can hang around people that we know, that we like, right? We can talk about topics that we're actually energized about. We can plan the energy in our day for when we're most likely to be able to have the energy to keep up. We're going to be able to have the rest and recuperation period. We're not going to overschedule ourselves. And we're not going to film when we don't feel it, right? So, you're such a good boy. You're a good floof. I love you. So, if you're an introvert out there, I would love to hear thoughts, opinions on what we've shared so far. Any tips or tricks that you have that you may want to share with the good of the group, let me know so we can chat about it. But I think it's kind of funny because, so yes, I went to this event and some people may be like, oh my gosh, she has so much energy. She has all this stuff. But like, I will come back and crash just like a vid summit, right? People will be like, wow, you can talk to anybody. And I can for a very short amount of time, just like that bride at the wedding. But hi. Best believe as well that when I'm introducing speakers and whatnot, like, did I go out there? And I told you guys about this. I went out and did a little bit of research on each one of the speakers. How do you pronounce the name? Because I don't want to get it wrong. Because I don't want to be told that I did it wrong and I didn't, right? What is some notable thing about that person so I can bring it up and make it sound like I knew who they were before I introduced them on stage, right? And then, how do I make sure that before they go on stage, I reassure them that I have full confidence in not only their abilities, but how great they are and how good I am at my job. And then me just be like, I've already done your sound check. I made sure you have water. This is where you're going to be. I'm going to run you through, the time or when the time comes for this, I'm going to signal you like this. Those types of things make me feel like I am not only in charge, but I am competent. And that is one of the things that makes me feel better is if I feel like the other person believes that I am competent and confident, I have less time for me to sit there and worry about how I think I may be coming across to them. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So there's that. I shouldn't have said anything about tacos because now I really do want tacos. But I also kind of want pho, and I also want a cheeseburger, and I kind of want fried rice. I want all of those things, guys and gals. I want all of them. So I have to figure out what I actually want for food. Yes. But I will tell you this. After 3 days of interfacing with people, I was glad to put on headphones and be on the plane, sleep. I didn't talk to my Lyft driver on the way back. I was just kind of like, this is going to be a silent ride. It's just whatever I need to do to kind of rest and recuperate, not only my head and brain and everything, but and even now I know, I'm not going to be talking to people for another day or two, So do what you need to do. It doesn't mean, even if, you believe that is struggling or you couldn't do these things, that you can't do these things, because you can do all the things. Cooper believes that you can do all of the things, as do I. So, comments, questions, concerns, other tips that you may have, please let me know. And make sure that you drop a like on this live stream, and maybe you subscribe to this channel, because that would be nice to have you join the online fam, if that is so what you want to do. All right. So I'm going to go get some food. I am. Order all of them, the Shelly Recovery Buffet. That is absolutely correct. If you do all of those things, you're probably better off than I am. Right? Yeah, I am done. I'm going to go cuddle with the dogs, because that makes me happy as I rest and recharge. And I'm going to go watch probably some Harry Potter, actually. That sounds great. So I hope you all have a great night. You guys, I know it was Friday, but I wanted to still make sure that I show up for you guys, because you all continue to show up for me. I love you. When I go to the hairdresser, I never talk. They sometimes act like this is strange. You know what? You can even ask. Some people, they call it a silent hair appointment. Yeah. So, and I know that a lot of stylists will offer that, as long as you kind of say that to them. Be like, hey, I'd like to do a silent appointment. Nothing's wrong. I just want to make sure that I, let you know beforehand. Some of them are happy to not have to sit there and make the same small talk, right? How are you? What's new with the kids? You have any pets? Blah, blah, blah. They have their own list of questions that they're going through for each of their people as well. And they talk all day long. So for the most part, they may love people, but sometimes I think they're welcome for a break too, honestly. So thanks everyone for hanging out with me. I appreciate you all, and I will see you in a video very soon. Have an excellent night, all right? And a wonderful weekend.